Oh, here it is. Merry Christmas month, Internet! How's it going? I, for one hand, have been once again trying to understand the seinen genre. Yeah, it's not the genre that's quote-unquote geared towards my demographic, but that doesn't mean girls can't enjoy it too. Personally, I think it's more like a shonen DLC than a completely separate animal. There just seems to be a line between what American television and Japanese television consider mature content, and honestly, that just makes demographic genres all the more confusing. So today on this joyous occasion, I continue my quest for anime enlightenment by showing you Gangsta, a show promising a seinen experience for more than just on the surface that meets the eye. But will it really do the job? Let's just find out and see, shall we? In the city of Ergastelum, a shady town filled with madmen and petty thieves, whores on the make and cops on the take. But there are jobs even the most jaded of inhabitants wouldn't take. Enter the handyman Nick and Warwick, a neutral party who will do jobs no one else will, and do them in ways only they know how. Until one day, when a cop they know requests their help in taking down a new gang muscling on the territory of a top mafia family, it seems like business and mayhem as usual, but the handymen are about to find out that this job is a lot more than they bargained for. Ooh, alright, now before we begin, I want to give my personal stance on anime from original content, since it's a little different from Robin's. Like Robin, I also agree that 9 times out of 10, when an anime has an original source, its main goal is to advertise for said original source. But adding my own spin to that, I personally think that all anime series should be able to stand on its own 2 legs. It gives me a better unbiased opinion than to count an anime for whether it goes by the manga or not. Sometimes I feel that there are anime that follow the manga too much and doesn't leave room for wiggle room. Even if you've never read the manga, you still notice this problem. In Gangsta's case, the plot at first was very well rounded, with a focus that really engaged me as a viewer. It's the little details of their setting in everyday lives that made this anime shine, especially when they dealt with the theme of power versus weakness. Not everything is meets the eye, and when you take time to look into the shadows of life, you'll start to question how people manage to cooperate. In fact, this series is good in getting the strife and people of prejudice correct. Not everyone on the losing side of the fence was screaming for radical change, and even when the new rules were made, people lived with it. This shows that the anime can have a way of creatively telling a theme and not playing it down at the same time. As for the show's weaknesses, for one, the show's pacing is really sloppy. Like I said before, I could easily tell that the show was running out of space with its manga releases from the rush scenes that were glanced over, and some glaring plot holes that never got revisited. Plus, by the time it got to the 9th episode, the rush train wrecked itself into one of the most chaotically disappointing climaxes of this past season. Another problem is that, because of its short runtime, it bit more off than it can chew with its large cast of characters, especially throughout the introduction of the series. I found it frustrating at times when it would try to macromanage by showing us events about characters I couldn't care less about. I understand Manglobe was producing on their last legs, trying to stay afloat with this anime, but this doesn't excuse what could have been avoided if the show was either extended for at least another 12 episodes, or at the very least, given an anime-only plotline to have an anime-only end. For as much backlash people give anime original plotlines, I'd rather have a show at least try to get out of its comfort zone and give it a chance than to try to play the safe card and stay with its manga intended route, especially for mangas that aren't finished. It can be done right. It has been done right. Or if they just had a smaller cast and focused on the main 3 characters, then this series could have been so much more satisfying. So many characters. So many. I know it's not Gangsta without, gangs, but all the people you put in this just made it all the more confusing, Manglobe. But I'll get to all of that in the after show. Right now, let's just focus on the main 3, our handyman trio as you like to call it, Alex, Warwick, and Nick for now. Starting with our dynamic duo, Warwick Archangel himself is a 35-year-old quote-unquote normal and is the team's negotiation department. Most of the time, he's very happy-go-lucky as he tries to live his life past the events of his somber childhood, but he takes his job as a handyman very seriously. As the only survivor of his late prosperous family, we see through his perspective that even normal humans with fortunate social upbringings can have misfortunate outcomes, and the things they go through aren't always black and white. For example, in terms of abilities, he has a high case of photographic memory that lets him recall every minor detail of events, which was an agonizing crutch on his past. In fact, it's the struggle of getting away from the past that haunts him that really intrigues me, along with his desire to be more than just a normal so he can keep up with the dark world around him. Reminded me a lot of Mikado from Durarara, except Warwick knows what he's getting himself into. Did I mention that this guy doubles as a gigolo just to pay rent? It's this side of him that not only is a factor to how he got by and how he perceives certain people in life, but really helps out another character, Alex, as it's something they both can relate to as he helps her get over her problems. Next we have Nicholas Brown, a 34-year-old aloof character who is literally a man of action. This is because he has a deaf disability that limits him to sign language and jagged speech. Of course, with the exception of inner monologue for the audience to hear. As the other main force of the handyman, he represents the prejudiced perspective of the plot. As a Twilight, he's in a race of people who up till recently were treated as nothing more than slaves and killing machines to their masters, in which Nick himself has been serving Warwick since they were kids. And while after the rules instated by the 4 mafia bosses helped the Twilight situation drastically, the damage has still been done. From there we go through Nick's inner thoughts as he contemplates if his situation as a Twilight, both racially and personally, could even get to a level of comfort. Or better put, could someone who's already been too far down the rabbit hole could obtain something other than a horrid end. He even explains that the reason he still fights so recklessly is because it's what he knows, and is just one step closer to getting that sense of peace, whether it's living to see another day or die in the process. He could really care less at this point, because there might be no point in going on in the first place. Ironically, it's a very realistic mentality if I do say so myself. I appreciated Nick as a character because he didn't try to be overly brooding with his issues, because his issues were already so relatable, even if to an anime extent. Now, playing devil's advocate to others who have stated something about the purpose of Nick's disability, I feel that his disability was adding to his no-care mentality, since at this point of his life, he'll keep on running himself into the ground purposely, whether his disability stiffens him or not. So, yeah. That may be a stretch, but I'm eerily kinda glad they didn't put much focus on it. From the other things that happened in this series, they could have easily distracted me from seeing his inner thoughts entirely. What I will say was the glaring problem was the fact that his mysterious tendencies didn't go anywhere thanks to the structure of the plot. There were people he interacted with and things he did that, because of how the episodes just went, got pushed under the rug, so we really won't know anything. Conclusively, like Warwick, he does warm up to certain characters, showing a softer side, and overall balances his partner quite nicely. The last character I will highlight for now is Alex Benedetto, a 24-year-old ex-prostitute who was saved by the handyman and now works as their secretary. Interestingly enough, she's the character that ties together all of the loose ends between our dynamic duo, as we're given a perspective right between the middle. And I have to say, I really love this third, unbiased perspective. In her situation, she left home at a young age to earn money for her family, but soon gets into a life of prostitution, which for a long time was seemingly her only way of living. Now she goes through the series trying to both regain the lost pieces of her past and move forward while trying not to hop back on the prostitution ring, thanks to the psychological damage done to the side effect of pimp drugs. And on top of all of this, Alex well represents the woman aspect of this world, where there are two main choices. Either you adapt it to the city, learning to overcome and live with its struggles, or you let the city adapt you, going with the flow and causing an outcome you could heavily regret. And while I adored the various sides we see from other female characters in the show, Alex's was the most relatable because it showed a slow progression of stability with a spike in regression. She gives enough characterization for both her past on drugs and prostitution to play off of the handyman, as the three collectively go together. In short, it's Alex's relatability that made the other two handymen work so well. And I think that without her in the series, they would have been fine, but it would feel more like a buddy cop flick than anything more, if you know what I mean. Gangsta is probably one of the last animated works we will see from anime studio Manglobe, who just recently filed for bankruptcy. I'm really sad about this because this studio not only brought us fantastic titles like Samurai Champloo, the World God Only Knows franchise, Carnival, Ego Proxy, Dead Man Wonderland, and my personal love in the Hayate no Gotoku series. They were very tenacious in their animation style as they changed things up from time to time. Gangsta's animation was good for what it wanted to do. I will say that the character designs of a certain few did make me frustrated. Yes, the core characters were designed nicely, especially Alex, but not for everyone. At times I even wondered who was who and what the Blaming Socks was their purpose. As for sound, the opening really overshadowed its ending, to be honest. I really liked the opening sequence Renegade, as it fit the genre well, as it set my blood pumping for what's about to come next, but its ending was so starkly forgettable, and that was disappointing since Manglobe has a record for at least decently picked songs. For the sub versus dub debate, I'm happy to say that either will do the job just fine. The sub has great emotions and a good layer of grit between the teeth for this type of world. Then again, since most of the characters are over the age of 20 and the setting is more western oriented, the dub fits better in my opinion. Just remember that at the time of this review, this is a double talk broadcast dub and could not be the DVD's final product. But it just seems like the type of anime that voice actors could act and be able to punch in extra flavor for emotion. For example, I want to give a good pat in the back to Brendan Potter for his role of Nicholas because of the way he portrayed the character's deaf disability. With his past role as Sven from Black Cat, it really hit home how much of an advantage having an older role can be. So overall, presentation was pleasantly okay, give or take a few bumps here and there. So without further ado, let the rage storm begin. And welcome back to the Aftershow, the portion of my reviews where my spoiler tracker is turned off and I can get into the real nitty gritty. Even if this time, the nitty gritty is just grit and it smells like a Monday morning tuna. This portion is geared towards those who have already finished the series and where I can talk more as a fan rather than a reviewer. But that doesn't mean I won't analyze anything. So there's not any further questions. This is your final spoiler warning. Now then. Screw half of the side characters. Screw you, and you, and you, and you, and... Actually, you both can get a cookie for pulling a female psychopath. But especially, screw Monroe and your entire group. Not only did you guys plunder the plot for most of the series, in fact, most of Monroe's actions are plot assumptions that he's an okay dude who is very loyal to his underlings. Granted, my favorite episode, Evening Dress, was the best example of squeezing in side characters. Plus, the Cristiano family was the only family I actually cared about thanks to this episode. But that's kinda cheating since this was only done through Alex's point of view, so it goes back to my main character should have been the focus thing. Finally got that out of my system. So without further ado, let's get on with the...
You've got mail.
Ooh, a Christmas card. How nice. I wonder who it's from. Let's see here. Yada yada yada. Best wishes. Loves the mom. Merry Christmas from the Hunters. You know what? Fuck these guys. Not only are these guys so hard to distinguish from the original cast design-wise, but their main sponsor for all of these killings is so anticlimactic. I'm like, really, bro? You're going to just play the obvious card here? It's not like we were all thinking, oh hey, look at the racist dipstick. I hope he doesn't come back in, like, say, 4 to 6 episodes with a band of edgelords to crush everything up. Ugh. To add to injury, we have this weird Marco subplot going on in the background, with by the way things had ended, was a clear obvious trigger for the read the manga to continue ending, and that totally doesn't fail my completionist rage. I really had high hopes for this anime to be better. Granted, when the show had a core focus, it was great. The main trio was solid and I liked the issues it dealt with, but seeing this as Manglobe's last stand, I really just don't know what happened. It just more meh. So after some consideration and 52 servings of Grandma's special soup, I'd give Gangsta with the unfortunate recommendation to deny it. This anime is also getting the watchability rating of T for teen. The completionist in me just tells me that if you're going by the anime alone, it wouldn't be wise to see it if you have no desire to read the manga. And the bigger reason is when I asked myself, did the anime do its job in making people want to read the source material? And that was also a no. Sure, there are a lot of read the manga endings, but at the very least some of them tried to keep open-ended enough so that it could end okay, but still be room for more. As for its watchability, it alludes to sex scenes, but not really, and the general fare of violence is present for a normal anime, but the important part is that it helps a lot with the plot and characters, so it's really appropriate for this show. If you're looking for a mafia gang-themed anime with better writing and characters, I point you towards the obvious classic Baccano. For something with a similar feel though, but more linear and newer than Baccano, I also recommend Michiko to Hachiken to give you fans a bit of worldly diversity. Well, that's about it for me. Woo, it's been a long ride. If you haven't already, give this video a like, subscribe to our channel, and check out our Patreon page because hey, that's a thing again. And you know what? Eat some nachos for me. This is Shannon, and if you'll excuse me, I have a Vampire Devil musical to direct, so stay tuned to Anime America. Oh yeah, I forgot one thing. Hit it!
Hey, we got a website. You should check it out. Link is in the description box down below. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr, so follow us. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe to Anime America Podcast for more awesome reviews. If you're interested in anything of pop culture, check out our other awesome channel, Pop Spectrum. You'll be glad you did. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned to Anime America.